Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. This is Ijama. I'm your host, and I'm glad you've joined me again. This week, my guest is Lisa Lehman, and she runs the Etsy shop Studio Jewel by the Bead Girl. We're going to talk about that because there's a story behind the name. And she also has her own website, studiojewel.com. Lisa, thank you so much for being my guest this week, and welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we start the full conversation?
Okay, let's see. I'm an artist, a mom, a wife. I have 4 kids. I have 1 husband, and a very busy house because these children of mine are all teenagers. So,
oh boy,
been running this business for about 14 years and trying to play mom at the same time. So it's been a crazy ride.
Oh, wow. Okay. So before you started selling on Etsy, you were an artist right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. I had my own graphic design company for years before I made the switch into the metals world of goldsmithing.
Okay. So Lisa opened her Etsy shop in August of 2007, and to date she has over 5,000 sales. So I think we're going to learn a lot from Lisa. How would you describe yourself today? So you were a graphic artist before, and now you make jewelry. How do you describe yourself? Do you consider yourself an artist still, a maker, a crafter? What would you say?
Usually, if I have to put a tagline on anything, I say I'm an artist and a maker. You know, I think an artist is what I am. It's who I am, and a maker is what I've chosen to do with that gift. So,
I like it. So was 2007 when you first discovered Etsy?
I think I actually signed on to Etsy at the onset when they first launched. I was just super curious about the creative market and what was there, but didn't quite have the guts to launch myself out there as a seller. So I was lurking for a while at first.
How did you know when they first came onto the scene?
You know, I was trying to think about that. I have no idea. I don't remember where. I think, I don't know if it was a different social media. It was so long ago.
Right.
It's just hard to pinpoint when I actually found them. But I remember stumbling across it somehow and was just really super excited about it.
Wow. I feel like I'm always late to the party. And so by the time I discover something, everyone is already like, oh, yeah, we know. And so I am always impressed when people know. So now what do you sell?
I sell all artisan handcrafted jewelry.
Okay. And what's the story behind your Etsy shop name? Because you go by, on Etsy, it has you listed as the Bead Girl. And I see that your branding says Studio Jewel by the Bead Girl, but you don't really have very many beaded items.
Or none.
Or none, yes.
I think when I first got into jewelry making, I started with beads. You know, that was probably 2001. I was pregnant for my 4th child, and my husband said, hey, you know, why don't you try this? This might be a fun hobby for you, because I was kind of slowing down in my graphic design business and looking for an outlet. And so I started playing with beads, and I made things, and immediately I was selling them to friends and to family. And so when I launched my Etsy shop, I still was predominantly working in the bead world. And so, you know, it's like, oh, you need a name. Here, I'll do this. Well, it wasn't long after that I switched to metals, but with Etsy, it's a little hard to change your name. And so I was kind of stuck. And so when I rebranded myself to be Studio Jewel, because my graphic design company was Studio Elements, you know, kind of made the switch there. It was too late to change an Etsy name. So I kind of just stuck with the Bead Girl for forever.
Okay. Have you found that having a shop name that doesn't reflect what you actually sell has impacted your Etsy business or sales negatively?
Not at all. And I honestly, when Etsy did allow the option for name changes, I looked into that first and was going to do that. And because I was panicking, should I change it? I don't do this. And I didn't do it. I was established enough, and it really has not. I mean, I never have anybody come to me and say, why is your name the Bead Girl? I mean, no one ever, ever, ever. So.
Okay. And I ask that because sometimes, there's so much information about selling on Etsy and what the secret sauce is. And sometimes people postulate that maybe the name, your shop name, can help to drive traffic if, it matches, or having a cohesive brand. Well, it's always good to have a cohesive brand, but
Sure.
It's good to know that, at least in your case, it has not had any negative impact.
Right. Because I knew that there was some searchability with that. But if it does affect me, I haven't noticed it yet. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Now, when you first started on selling on Etsy, what was your original goal? Were you just testing the waters, or did you make up your mind that you wanted to be a full-time artisan jeweler and sell your creations as your full-time living?
I think at the point I launched my store, I also was starting to do some craft fairs and art fairs, and really thought that this could be my, quote unquote, next career. So I didn't know what that would mean on Etsy because it was still, a fairly new platform, and I wasn't really familiar with all of it and knowing what it was going to do. But I was pretty determined that somehow I was going to make this work.
Yeah. Okay. And you have?
I have.
How long or how far into your Etsy journey did you realize that it was going to be your full-time thing and it did have that potential?
I think I launched a website at the same time, and that seemed to do better at first. So I think it took me a while of really familiarizing myself with Etsy and how that works with the photos and the tags and the titles until I really got a rhythm where that was consistently building for me. So it did take a couple years, I would say, before I felt like I was in a good rhythm.
Okay. Did the website that you launched, is it studiojewel.com?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And when you launched that, were you focusing more on that one, or it just so happened that it took off sooner than the Etsy shop?
I think I did focus more on my website at first, and it wasn't until I got involved with a few teams on Etsy that I started to feel more of a community there and really get a better understanding. I had also started on Twitter when Twitter launched again way back when, and I built a huge following on Twitter when Twitter was still conversations where people actually talked to each other.
Yeah.
And so that really was a huge business builder for me, and I sent them at that point more to my website, but then eventually that all switched over to Etsy for me as well.
Okay. So from the get-go, your website was always an e-commerce website.
Correct. Yeah.
What platform did you use or do you use for selling from your website?
That website, I have no idea. My first one was ridiculously so hard to navigate. Now I'm in Business Catalyst.
Okay. And is that working? Are you happy with that one?
Actually, I'm processing a switch again. I did that one. I know it's like I've been in this so long. It gets to be time to change a lot. That one I did, I think, 5 years ago.
Okay.
So I'm processing maybe that people keep launching different platforms all the time, and they seem to get easier and easier. And, I'm kind of a fan of easy.
Oh, yeah.
I am not techie. So I don't, I can do a lot, but that website stuff is out of my realm.
Did you initially have any fears or reservations about starting an online business, both on Etsy and on your own?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have always been an online shopper, but I thought, how am I ever going to get found in this sea of, talented people out there. And I just, it was overwhelming for a really, really long time. It's still overwhelming, but differently now.
Yeah. So between running your own e-commerce site and an Etsy shop, how do you manage your time? And for teenagers, really, because your whole world, you work from your home studio. So
Correct.
Your whole world is kind of all intertwined. What's your secret to time management?
Well, honestly, if I can, let me start that over. If I can go back even a few years ago when I was in the prime of the business building, I was also homeschooling all those kids at the same time.
Wow.
And so that makes me a little crazy, but it also actually taught me huge time management. I would work off of Excel spreadsheets for my day, where it would say, okay, we're going to do this from this time to this time, and we're going to do this from this time. And then, okay, here's mom's studio time. And that was set in stone. So it really, it established those habits years ago where I knew that was my block of time. So since I've always had a studio at home, I did have one outside of the home for a couple years. It really allowed me to just keep very focused and very scheduled and very routine based in how I get things accomplished.
Wow. So today, what does your typical business day look like, or your typical day?
Typical day, my kids, now it's summer, so that just threw everything out of the window. But typically they are off to school by 7 in the morning. And so by 7:30, I've done my home tasks and I'm sitting at my desk, and I usually sit and do desk work for the first hour and a half of the morning, answering my convos, pricing things, getting quotes on things, doing all of that sort of stuff. And then I try to get into the studio by 9:30, and I work straight through until they come home from school again. And I'll take a little break and greet them and do whatever, but then I go right back into the studio again until dinner time. And then evenings, I usually sit at my desk and do paperwork and blog posts and social media and all that kind of stuff.
Do you do all your administrative tasks yourself?
I had an assistant for several years, and that was the best thing ever. And then I moved, and she worked for me from a distance for a long time, but then she was building her own career, and that took off. And so I'm actually in process of needing another one because I cannot do it all myself. I think I'm losing my mind a little bit.
So how do you go about, because one of the things I like to ask about is how you pick the right employees or contract workers. Where do you even start to look for that right person?
That is a very good question. My assistant that I had was actually a friend who started helping me out a little bit at a time. And so she got to understand Etsy, which is really, I think, one of the most important things, because Etsy it's in its own way, has so much to it and to understand and how it works. And so she just started working side by side with me and then kind of took off. But to find someone new, I'm at a loss. I think that's why I haven't found somebody for the last few months, because I don't even know how to begin to find that great person. I know she's out there, but
right. Or could it be a he?
No, I'm really passionate about helping moms that want to work at home, or just so that's kind of why I say she. It could be a he, and that would be kind of fun too, but I want to help these moms out that want to stay home with their kids and maybe look for some part-time income.
Right. So on a typical day, when does your day end? Are you good about cutting off at a certain time and saying, okay, the work day is done, and just going on with family stuff?
Well, I would love to lie, but I know that my husband will probably listen to this at some point. And the truth is, I never turn it off. I'm terrible at walking away. Yeah. Terrible. It's my worst. It is probably my biggest fault. I have a very hard time walking away from it.
Yeah. But does it stress you out when you can't, or it's more because it's your passion, it doesn't feel as much as work like a regular, or I shouldn't say irregular, but another job that wasn't fueled by passion would. Sure.
I think absolutely. I think the part that ties me to my desk is probably the part I hate the most, because it's, that's just the fundamentals of getting the work done.
Mm-hmm.
So that I don't like being tied to, but when I'm in the studio, time flies. I mean, once I'm in my creative zone, I could stay there forever and do my thing. So that's never a problem.
Yeah. And let's talk about that. What inspires the pieces that you create?
Usually there's two different things, I would say. I think a lot of the pieces I create come from something I want. I always started out designing for myself. What would I want to wear? I'll be getting dressed for an occasion, or even just basic everyday running errands. Like, oh, what did I wish I could just throw on, or I had? And that's where a lot of my design ideas come from. And then the second inspiration, I think, I'm just, the gemstones that I work with, and the different stones and the natural elements. That's just, that gets me fired up. I love to look at them and see what possibility lies within the stone that would make a great design for a necklace or a ring or something cool.
I really like that you said you create something that you want, because I've heard both sides, where some people are advocates of not necessarily making something that you like, because everybody might not like what you like. And in your case, you do, and it's worked for you. And I think that's just a reminder that there isn't one formula for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And for me, it's all, my designs are not really huge, big, and bold. And I've had people ask me to do things like that. And I've always said no, because I wouldn't wear it. That's not the kind of jewelry that I enjoy. So I don't want to make stuff like that. So it also allowed me to have some parameters with what I will or will not do.
Okay. So when it comes to making custom orders, how far off your basic design will you go?
Not terribly far.
Okay.
And I'm very honest about, there's some things that I'm just not excellent at. I can do almost everything, but there's some things I'm not excellent at yet in goldsmithing. And so I'm also very honest in saying, I'm not my best here. So I'm not even going to tell you I can do something that may not be my best work. So it kind of goes between what I will do, what I'm capable of doing, and what I just don't want to make.
Right. So I see that you also have a medical alert bracelet. Which I like. That caught my eye right away. Is it tied to the actual medical alert where they can press something, or can you inscribe allergies and or conditions that a person might have, so someone can just look at the bracelet and see it?
Yes. I mean, that has been an extremely popular piece for me that I designed. I think the first, there's been several redesigns and different ideas along it, but the first one I did was probably 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even longer. And, did some research into it. And as long as that, their medical personnel are trained they have to look for something if they come across someone who is, that needs medical attention. And so they do have to look for a bracelet or a necklace. And then I always include that medical alert, either a stamp or a charm, so they know that this is important. And then, it has all the information, different allergies, don't do this, don't do that.
Wow.
Some of them include phone numbers. And I love making those pieces because the people who get them are always so grateful that they have something that's pretty. Instead of the standard. And so that I love that part of it.
Yeah, I liked that. When I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's the kind of medical alert bracelet I'd want to wear. Or I'd want to be found.
And I just did one for a guy yesterday, actually. And it was of my men's cuff, which is one of my more popular items. And it's a wider one. And it had the stamp on it, and it said insulin dependent. It had his name and a phone number. And it's like, he was just like, yes, this is cool. And I'm not embarrassed to wear it.
Yes.
That was awesome.
Brilliant idea.
Thanks.
So let's talk about pricing. How do you determine the prices that you set on the items that you sell?
It's kind of a basic formula. I used to do the math all the time, and now I pretty much know it in my head, based on time and materials and overhead, what my expenses are for different things. So now I can almost design a piece, if I know if it's in silver or if it's in gold, and then based on the stone, if there's any in there, I can pretty much come up with a price that is, my range of prices pretty quickly.
Was there a lot of trial and error where before you figured out exactly how to come up with your pricing strategy, you made some losses and didn't get paid with some of the things you sold?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I think, of course, with many and almost all artists, we tend to underprice ourselves all the time and undervalue our own time.
Yeah.
That's just one thing that artists are known for not being very good at. So I had at one point make a step and say, you know what, I am valuable, and this is a gift that I'm giving, and this is my skill level, and it's worth paying for.
Okay. Do you ever look at other jeweler shops on Etsy?
Well, I have lots of friends on Etsy that make jewelry. Some of my best friends on Etsy make jewelry.
Okay. Do you find that there's a free flow of ideas and exchanging and sharing of information? Not copying each other, but just helping each other?
I'm not as involved in teams as I used to be, but when I was, yes, I think there is great community out there. I mean, there are always going to be the ones that come along and steal your joy and steal your designs and, and that's just the nature of the beast, I think. But in general, I have found that there's a lot of encouragement out there and a lot of helpful attitudes from metalsmith to metalsmith or, whatever. So.
Did you teach yourself metalsmithing? I meant to ask and I forgot.
No, my degree is in fine arts, and so I had all the design background, but I went back to school at local college where we were living and took metalsmithing classes just to get the skill level. And then I take classes still all the time to try to better myself.
Oh, great. How often are you learning a new skill?
I try to teach myself things all the time, but every year I do go spend a week with my metalsmith guru, mentor, and that's always a week of challenge, a real challenge, and really challenging myself to learn new things. So,
how did you get your mentor?
Really, I met him at a conference, I was teaching a class at Bead and Button years ago and met him and knew who he was because he's quite well known in the metalsmith community, and just kind of connected with him, and over the years just really connected more and more, and then started going to his studio to take classes, and so that's kind of how the connection got made.
Okay. Wow, that's nice. So every year you go and get refueled and re-energized.
Yeah. I could take classes forever. I mean, there is so much to learn in this field, and I will never feel adequate in it because there's always people who, to aspire to, who do so much greater and better and more talent.
Yeah. So when you knew that you wanted to start selling, was there a lot of capital investment? Because I know you had to buy some equipment and stock up your studio. Was it capital intensive in the beginning, or were you able to start small and then just reinfuse money that from sales back into your business?
Yeah, and that's really the way I did it. I did not take out any loans ever, really just put it back in as much as possible, and saying, okay, I made this much here, I can buy a new tool now, or, just something else. And because I was working out of my home back then it wasn't really a very deluxe studio when I started out, but it worked, and there was little overhead. And so that was, I didn't want to go into debt doing something that I wasn't 100% certain of, because there's always that, even though I wanted to make it, I thought, what if I don't?
Yeah. So then how long, if you can vaguely remember, how long do you think it took before you broke even, and then how long after that before you were actually profitable?
I would say 3 years in, seriously going for it and selling, where it suddenly became profitable. I mean, I think I was making little profit, I wasn't going in the hole, but I think really when I started to say this is working was probably about 3 years of hard work. And maybe, that seems long, but I was also, playing the mom thing at the same time. So wasn't quite as committed to pushing it like I would be now, say.
Right. And not only were you playing mom, you were homeschooling at the time too.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Oh, my word.
No, honestly, that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, but that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So 3 years is not bad. And I like to ask that because I know everybody's journey is different and everyone's timeline is different, but rarely does it happen right away. Right. Even if you had all the capital and, had everything from the get-go, people still need time to find you and decide if they like you and then start talking about you and all that.
Absolutely. And I needed to find out exactly who I was in that process too. How did I want to be branded? How did I want people to view me? What was most important to me? So I think those years were all a little bit of that self-discovery.
Yeah.
As an artist and a maker too.
Yeah. And if I can just mention, because Lisa and I were talking before we started the recording, it's funny because as artists and creatives, I think we're constantly still discovering who we are and our identities are constantly changing. And for you, I know that's happening because we talked about rebranding again, so it doesn't stop really.
It doesn't. I think, you're constantly morphing because you're always, our mind, like you said, our minds are just going. It's like, okay, what's next? What can I do next? Yeah. What can I make next? How can I show that to somebody differently? So
yeah,
it's crazy.
Let's talk about promotion. So you started the website and your Etsy shop at the same time. What kind of promotion did you do? Let's talk about your Etsy shop first. What kind of promotion did you do to gain momentum and generate excitement about what you were selling?
I really jumped on the social media bandwagon, and I know it was still, like I said before, it was kind of new, and Twitter was new, and I was at first just having conversations about life in general, and then really just started not promoting like, here's what I made today, but just talking about what I was doing and talking about what I was making, and just I tried to not be an offensive seller, but just really began talking about my journey in the jewelry world. Actually, I started a blog and I named it Journey of a Jeweler because I just wanted, that was kind of where I started promoting, was between Twitter and my blog and just getting really involved in whatever was out there social media wise. I tried it and got involved in it.
Right. And you didn't have to use any gimmicks to get people engaged.
No. And I am the worst seller on the planet. I have no sales ability in me whatsoever. I loathe it. Like if you put me at a craft show or an art fair, I'll sweat because I'm so nervous about selling. Oh. It's just not in my nature to be a salesperson, and I knew that. So I just thought, I have to figure out a way because I have to sell this. Yeah. So a way of being myself and trying to be non-offensive and just kind of talk about why I do what I do and why I love it. And eventually that just really built a community for myself. And that was pretty much the way I promoted and continue to promote today.
Do you find that on social media, you're still able to connect with people that way, even today?
Yes, but it's changed. I definitely find that Twitter doesn't work for me anymore. I mean, I use that now more to talk to my teenagers online because they're the ones who dominate that. I think, Facebook is a great place to build that community. A blog is a great place. Instagram, even Pinterest in its own way. So there are ways to still foster that kind of community. It just changes all the time.
Right. Are you active on Instagram and Pinterest?
Oh yeah, I'm everywhere.
Oh, okay. And I will have links to all of Lisa's social media accounts so you can hunt her down wherever you hang out in the social media world.
Yes, please find me and say hello.
And then so your website as well, did you use social media also to generate traffic to that as well? Or were you doing SEO to send traffic that way?
I think once Etsy took off, I really put all my eggs in that basket. I really spent most of my time promoting that.
Okay.
And so the website is there and I'm beginning to utilize it more again, but it was kind of background for me. And I don't understand SEO very much. I mean, I know enough to be somewhat dangerous, but not enough to be, a weapon.
Yeah.
So I do some things and I try to do whatever is necessary in there. But I really mostly just don't get it.
Okay. So today, do you find most of your sales are through your Etsy shop versus your e-commerce website, or are they about even?
Now they're about even.
Okay.
I think my Etsy sales have declined a bit in the last year because of all the changes, and I know everyone has noticed some of that. And so now all my new customers tend to come through Etsy, which I love. And then, if they stick around and they get to know me and end up in any of my social media platforms, eventually they'll end up on my website from there.
Okay. Do you, down the road in the future, do you foresee yourself staying on Etsy because you do get new traffic from there? Or one day, do you want to be Lisa Lehman, independent self, no Etsy, no nothing?
I will. I don't think I will ever say goodbye to Etsy. And
Okay.
I think because I'm very loyal. I mean, I know there's been a lot of change and I know there's a lot of things that people don't like and there's things I don't like, but honestly, I'm so grateful for the platform they gave me to start this. And that really helped me explode in the way that I did, that I'll never turn my back on that.
Oh, that's nice.
I just do. I mean, I'm just like, I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Etsy. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. And, times change and things change. But yes, I think it's a good tool in one's toolbox. Etsy.
Absolutely.
Do you find that you get more repeat sales or most of your businesses from new customers?
Repeat sales, just new people consistently, or what do you mean exactly?
So most of the sales you get, do they come from people who have already bought from you previously, or are most of the sales from people you're selling to for the first time?
Again, it's really 50-50. I get a lot of new people and I have a really great loyal customer base as well. So.
Okay. One of the things I like about your website, and it's studiojewel.com, is you have a blog on there. So you sell on there as soon as someone lands on the site. That's studiojewel.com, and I will have links to the website. They see that you are selling jewelry. It's very clear, but then you also have a blog. And what I liked so much about your website is that you write consistently and your readers interact with you on a very personal level. How did you manage to accomplish that?
I think, I do try to write regularly, and I think I've just always been very transparent, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's not a good thing, but I don't know. I don't try to hide behind being a super seller or this, giant artist or, I talk about my jewelry, but I also talk about my life. I'm very honest about things I struggle with in business, things I struggle about personally. And I think that's really helped people get to know me as a person. And so therefore, then they are my friends. I consider anyone who has purchased from me, they've come into my world and they've let a piece of me back into theirs. So it's very personal to me on all levels.
Yeah, I loved it because I think it's hard to connect sometimes, and especially if people think they go to a website to handle a transaction. I'm going here to buy something. You don't expect to get that kind of interaction. And I just thought it was nice. And that website has been up since 2007, right?
I think so. It changed platforms in there, but I think it's pretty much been around since then.
Okay. Yeah. So
my memory is kind of foggy about all those starts.
That's okay. You have 4 teens, so you're allowed. You're allowed to be foggy about some stuff.
They have stolen brain cells. Of that, I am certain.
Yeah. Now, when you get a new idea for a new product to create, typically what's the lifespan from when the idea comes to you to executing it to actually putting it up for sale? About how long is that process for you?
It's much longer than I would like it to be honest. I have stacks of drawings because that's kind of where I start with a lot of things. I'll draw things and then, then I'll start playing with the different pieces. I always have trays on one of the tables in my studio where these starts of designs are, but I get bogged down with production because, I have orders to fill and timelines to deal with. And that's my first order of business. So once I finally do get back to a design, as soon as it's done, I'd like to get it photographed and have that done. And I use my background, my degree is in photography. Okay. And so that has been super helpful for getting great product photos out there. But now my daughter is also a photographer and she has taken over that part for me. And she's much better at it than I ever was. So I get, she'll get those photos done for me. And then it's just, I don't know, for some reason to get the photos and then get the product listed, there's always a bigger time lapse in there than I wish there was.
So all the pictures in your shop, your Etsy shop right now, are they all done by her?
Well, the newer ones, yes. Any of the new product, but anything that's been, then there's a smattering of her and I in between. But some of the pieces that have been in my shop for a while are my photos, but all the new stuff is hers.
Okay. Wow. Well, between the two of you, there's just a lot of talent I'm seeing.
Oh, thank you.
And do you sell the same items on studiojewel.com that you sell in your Etsy shop?
I do, but there are more items in my Etsy shop than on my website. Okay.
How do you track inventory so that you don't sell out on one place and happen to sell it on the other and then end up without something? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
That happens all the time.
Okay.
I think I don't carry too much inventory except for earrings maybe and some of the necklaces. But because of the nature of Etsy, most people come in with customization requests. And because I do probably more rings than anything else, there's no way to plan that ahead. I don't make rings in certain sizes and then say, okay, you can buy a size 6 or a 7. I do make them to order. So that, that's great because I don't overlap too much, but at the same time, it's bad because I'm working around the clock to fill orders.
Yeah. And then you also do wholesale through your website. Is that correct?
I do. I used to do a great deal more of it, but it was just without an assistant, it's hard for me to keep up with that. So that's not my major right now.
Okay. Did you ever do wholesale through Etsy?
I have not. I have gotten a few requests, but nothing that has come through at this point.
Okay. So right about now, I usually ask what you do in a creative rut, but I know you have stacks of designs already, so I'm not even going to go down that road.
I do. I have way more in my head than I have time to get out.
What are some of the things that you think you did that particularly helped you be successful as a creative business, not just on Etsy, but also off of Etsy?
I think I would have to say consistency. Consistency in producing and putting new products out there, and then talking about that, whether it was Twitter years ago or now. If I design something new, I instantly put it out on Instagram even before it's listed to get a feeling of, what do you think about this design? And I think just being consistent and having you put yourself in front of other people all the time is where, because it's not that they don't want to buy from you. It's that they forget that you're there and someone else is there instead. And so I think it's not, I never look at it like, oh, they hate me, they don't like my stuff. It's just that they just forgot I was there. So if I'm not being consistent, then, they're going to forget I exist. And I think a newsletter is also critical to keeping your customer base reminded that you do exist consistently there too.
Yeah. And I saw that you have one. How often are you communicating with your subscribers?
Really only maybe three times a month. I don't throw myself in their face, and I try not to. Sometime it'll be about a new product. Sometime it'll be about, hey, I wrote this blog post I thought you might love. Sometime I'm just checking in and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. I went and did this with my family, or, I found this great recipe, just really personal again, just letting them see the human side of me.
Yeah. I like that you're Lisa to everyone,
I am. And I love my people.
Yeah. It shows. Have you ever made a sale through Instagram? Since you post something before it's even up for sale. Have you ever had anyone through Instagram approach you and say, I want that. Can you just sell it to me?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Often.
Really?
Often. Yeah.
So how does that work then?
Then I'll tell them to message me, and I'll, throw my email in there, and then we'll go back and forth that way and do invoicing and whatnot. So yeah, it works. It works, especially because you tend to get a real loyal following of the people that see your stuff there all the time. And so they're the people looking to see, well, what's she working on now? What is she making now?
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Oh, I like that. I like that it's organic too for you. It's not contrived. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, I just, it's kind of just sharing. I just started using Periscope, the new app, a little bit.
Yeah. How do you like that?
I love it. I don't love that it sucks the battery out of my phone like crazy, but it's been fun. Like I would, a couple times I just, I showed my studio, I showed my space. This is what I'm working on. Once I showed me soldering some jump rings, something real simple.
Oh, wow.
Another time I was doing some forging, and just to kind of give them a little peek into my world, because it's normal to me, but I know that when people see what I do, that they may have never seen somebody put a stone in, a setting or to use a torch. So it's kind of fun to open their eyes to my world a little bit.
Oh yeah. I was just talking with a friend of mine about Periscope yesterday, and I was like, I can't do one more social media. I just can't. And so she was telling me how she does life coaching. And so she was saying how she was doing this live streaming on Periscope, and someone asked a completely random question so she was talking about, something else, and some guy from, I don't know where he was from, now asked her what size bikini he should buy for his wife. And she was like, now that's the downside to live streaming is you get the most random, and then you have to, decide in like a split second, how do I respond to this? Everybody is watching. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I don't know. That's why.
There is that awkward side to it. I will admit. And there's just some creepy people out there.
Yeah.
And they tend to find, places to be creepy.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I would follow you on Periscope. I don't have a Periscope account yet, but I would follow you.
You can do it. You can
do it. Okay. And I like the idea too, because one of the things I talk about on the podcast is I think people do like to get that background, behind the scenes look at what you're doing and how you're creating what ends up in your Etsy shop. And so I would watch, just to see. So it's a nice, I guess, before Etsy incorporates video. I'm not saying they will.
But they might.
I don't know, but they might.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff out there on Periscope that I think is kind of dumb and I don't really want to see. But for me, I'll just play around with it and see if it takes off for me or not. We shall see.
Okay.
We shall see.
Maybe I'll do a live streaming of recording an episode of the podcast.
That would be really cool to see what you're doing on your site. Is she really wearing her pajamas while she's podcasting? People want to know these things.
Okay, now you're scaring me, Lisa. I was kind of kidding, but now I'm like, oh wait, no, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. No, I don't always wear my pajamas. No, I never wear my pajamas. So, is there anything about being an e-commerce business owner that you learned the hard way? Something you wish you had known before jumping into this?
Well, there's probably a lot of different lessons. I think one of the hardest things for me still today is you own your shop, and yes, you make your products and you sell them, or you're selling something else, but you are human behind the shop. But sometimes people will tend to think that we are Amazon or something like that, and they forget there's a human that is creating and working and designing, and you'll get comments or convos or things that are not as kind. And so you have to, I think that's where you need to remember, not to get caught up in the negativity that could be there. I think that's always my downfall, whether, one bad comment can take 1,000 good ones and just smash them, to me. Or it's still running e-commerce. It's easy to hide behind your screen.
Yes.
And do or say things that you would never walk into someone's store and say to their face, or you walk into, so I think those, you have to have a little bit of a backbone, but you also, at the same time, need to remember to be very human behind an online store. I think that's the part. It took me a little time to find that voice, but once I did, that's where my success came in.
Yeah. Oh, you and me both. I completely can relate because, you're right. With the podcast, people can leave reviews.
Right.
And it just, 10 people can say the sweetest, nicest thing, and then one person say something, and I'm just like,
and that's the thing you tend to take to heart the most.
Yes, which is so sad, because 10 other people have said something good, and, it almost, feels like you disregard what 10 people say for one person.
I know. So. And that's, I guess it's good in some ways that you have that kind of feeling, but at the same time, you cannot let those things define you or change the way you're feeling about your work, because there's always going to be that out there. So
yeah,
that's the danger of doing things online.
Get used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So my next question is twofold.
Okay.
What's one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like? And then what's, if any, feature you would like Etsy to incorporate that they don't have right now?
Well, one thing I've always liked, I love the fact that they can easily send you combos over products. And I love that people feel the freedom to ask, because they don't know, or they don't understand, or they have questions. And I love that that's really an easy thing. And man, the app has just made that just so awesome. Like, that was the best thing since sliced bread.
I'm telling you, I love the app.
Oh, I love it. So that's great. I mean, I think I just got on a team for some new things they're testing out in combos, where you could see ones that are unread, or see, and add your snippets to it. And so those are things, I think that's the part that I've been always hoping that they made a little easier, because I tend to lose convos and they get lost in my inbox, or they get lost in the Etsy app itself. So I think, that's where they need to work things out a little bit better, just so I can find things a little easier and look up different customers or different people I've been talking to. But, other than that, I really, really can't complain too much or wish there was too much more. I mean, for what platform it is and for what they offer, I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay. What advice would you give to, I'm going to ask you for two, because you've been both. You've been a new seller and you're a veteran seller.
Okay.
So talk to that veteran seller on Etsy right now. They've been around, they're stable on Etsy. Do you have any advice for that person?
I think just having that stick-to-itiveness. Is that a word, or did I just make that up? I think
we'll take it.
There's a lot to weather and changes, and it's, especially now that there are so many people reselling out there, it's hard to stand out.
Yeah.
It's hard to even show up in searches and whatnot. But I think just consistently being there and not giving up on it completely, just, I don't know. It may not be the same, and it is not going to be the same, but just sticking with it because it's there and it's good, and somebody needs to find your product because it's awesome.
Oh,
I think that's important. For newbies getting in there, I think the best thing that Etsy has to offer are their teams, and there are teams for everything. And really, that is where I really got connected with people and made some great friends in the beginning. And it's just a great place to find people like you and to get that support when you need it. So that's kind of critical.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah. I just got a message actually on Twitter from somebody whose team I was on the very beginning. It was the Jet team on Etsy, Jewelers on Etsy. Oh. And it was the best team in the whole world. And they were just some of the greatest people out there. And I made so many good friends. I couldn't keep up with the requirements of a team plus, production. So I had to bail on that. But that's where I started out, and they were so awesome. And oh man, great people.
Does that team still exist?
They do. They do. They do still exist.
I'll put a link to it in the show notes, the blog post.
Yeah.
The Jet team, Jet.
Jet.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're a new seller on Etsy, or maybe not new, and you're looking for a good team to connect with, now you have a recommendation. Not new seller, but jewelry seller.
That would be for jewelry, yeah.
Yeah, for jewelry.
But there are teams for everything. You can find local teams. You can find people, for anything. And it's just so great to, even if you connect with 10, 20, 50 different people, those are people who get you.
Yeah.
And that's critical.
Yeah. Okay, good. So I'll have that link. Okay, my last question for you. What are your current favorite tools and resources for selling on Etsy? So it could be a tool that you use in your craft. It could be a tool for business. What are you currently enjoying that you would like to share with us?
Oh, that's a good question. I probably should have thought about that a little bit more to have a good answer for you.
Should I play the Jeopardy music while you think?
Yeah, right. Could you please? I think, oh goodness, I don't know. I would think my favorite tool in promoting and doing things would be using Instagram right now. I think that. Because I love images so much, and I think it's such a great way to connect people, not to just what you make, but to piece again of your life a little bit. So, they can see that and connect with you as a human, and then connect you back to your shop. So I think it's just a way of selling, but yet also being you.
Yeah. I love Instagram. It's taken me some time to learn it and figure it out, but I like that I can have real conversations with people on Instagram.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's, and I think I know there's tools, a way of getting notifications on people, that you can, so if there's people you want to see, you can turn on a notification. I think that's important in Instagram, because otherwise if you follow too many people, you'll never see the ones you want to see.
I did not know that. I have to go and look for that.
yeah, just go to their page and click on those little dots, I think, on the top, and you can turn on notifications. So, yay, I taught you something today.
Yes, you did. You did. I don't know why Instagram is such a mystery. To me, everybody says it's so easy, but it's a mystery to me. But I'm glad I learned. I'm going to do that after this.
There you go.
Lisa, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
I would say the best way is email, because I do check that consistently throughout the day, and it's studiojewel@gmail.com. You can really, Studio Jewel, one word, you can find me just about anywhere.
Yeah, you cornered that one.
I did.
Good for you. And I will have links to Lisa's Etsy shop, her website. I'll also put her email on the blog post as well, and all her social media accounts, so you can find her and connect with her. If you can't write this down, it will be on the website. Go to convome.com/ oh wait, I haven't decided what the URL will be. So just go to convome.com and look for Studio Jewel or look for Lisa Lehman, and you'll find everything there. Lisa, thank you so much for being my guest on the podcast. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I've learned some stuff for you. I took notes, and I'm going to transfer the notes to my notebook where I go back and refer to everything I've learned. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It was a true pleasure to be here with you today.
And I will be back on the podcast next week. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.